All right, Acts, the Holy Spirit at work in the believer. Okay, so overview and purpose. The author of Acts is Luke. He also wrote the book of the Gospel of Luke. Oftentimes this is treated as almost like a continuation of that book. Um, these two volumes of literature make Luke the the largest author of the New Testament. So he wrote most of the New Testament just with those two books, right? So the purpose is to give an overview of the early growth of the church. And it's mainly broken up into two sections. The first is Peter's ministry, which runs from chapter 1 through 13, and then Paul's ministry, chapter 13 through 28. So, Peter's ministry. He preaches preaches on Pentecost. The people are baptized in the Holy Spirit and they speak in tongues. And this is important and pivotal for us because this is one of our fundamental truths: is that the initial physical evidence of baptism of the Holy Spirit is speaking in tongues, found Acts 1, 4, and 8. Right. So, um, it also shows how Peter and the other apostles are persecuted for their faith. Um, when the Peter makes a speech for the Sanhedrin, he tells them that the crucifixion of Jesus was a sin of ignorance and that God would forgive this. And this is pivotal because he's saying that, look, even though you killed my son, I'm going to treat this like you did not know, right? So this is God telling the Sanhedrin, hey, look, I'm going to treat it like you didn't know that you just killed my son. And so this is a beautiful way of showing God showing his mercy. Obviously, most did not take that. Another interesting thing about the persecution, Paul was one of the leaders in stoning Stephen, and he turns out being a very important part of the second half of the book, and he obviously wrote a lot of other New Testament epistles and did a lot of amazing things. But he started out as a persecutor of Christians. Um, but back to Paul, Peter, and Sanhedrin, Gamaliel states that it turns out somewhat prophetic that if this is a man, if this is of man, this movement would die out. But if it's by God, nothing would stop it. Here we are 2,000 years later, and empires have rose and empires have fallen, including the Roman one. And yet the church still stands. And this is a beautiful thing, right? That, Jesus prophesied, he said, look, even the gates of hell are not going to prevail against this church. So things may look bleak, things may look hard right now, but nothing is going to prevail against the church, right? We already have the victory. We already have that victory through Christ. There were three missionary journeys. The first one was Paul's journey through Asia Minor. He established multiple churches through the area. He started this what we call spreading the gospel to the world, right, to the ends of the earth. The second missionary was through Asia Minor and Greece. He was checking up on some of the health. This journey did not get off to a good start, but it ended well, and it laid a lot of the foundation for his third missionary journey, where he was able to establish the church at Ephesus. Um, and this goes to show that, look, things may not get off to a good start. Your ministry may not get off to a good start, school year or whatever, but yet that does not determine the ending. There's still way God is still working in all of this. And finally, the third missionary journey focuses on Ephesus. Ephesus is a major city, but no longer a city. But now there are less than 50 born. There are only less than 50 born again Christians in the area that would have been Ephesus at the time. So, what was going back to that? Hey, the gates of hell are not going to persevere against the church. Ephesus is no longer a city. I mean, this was the center of idolatry. People were making so much money off of the idol worship in this area, yet it's no longer around, but the church is still around. In Revelation, the letter to Ephesus, they warned that their love had grown cold. So they were warned. Obviously, they must not have heeded the warning. Finally, the application. It's up to us as Christians to share the good news of the gospel. God has entrusted us as the messengers to share the good news. He could have done this himself, but yet He invites us to be co-workers in the gospel, right? And the Spirit will empower us to speak truth to those in need of salvation. We need to understand the gospel, but yet we need to trust the Holy Spirit to guide us in leading people to faith in Jesus Christ.